Hello and welcome. This is Notibot ENG. Good evening. I'm your anchor. Tonight, we bring you the latest developments from the world of politics and energy. Tensions in the Middle East remain high as Iran and the U.S. engage in diplomatic efforts to ease the conflict. Meanwhile, the oil industry is watching closely as a major waterway reopens, and energy concerns are growing in Asia. We'll take a closer look at these stories and more, bringing you the top news in 10 minutes. Let's get started. As tensions escalate in the Middle East, Iran's government is pushing back against a contentious claim made by a U.S. former president. Good evening. I'm your name, and this is a special report. We're coming to you live with the latest updates from the Middle East, where a ceasefire has been in effect for 24 hours. According to reports, tens of thousands of people who were forcibly displaced by Israeli attacks on Lebanon have used the first day of the ceasefire to return home. The humanitarian situation in the region remains dire, with many residents still struggling to access basic necessities. Eyewitnesses describe scenes of devastation and chaos, with buildings damaged and homes destroyed. The Israeli military has acknowledged that its attacks on Lebanon caused significant civilian casualties and damage to infrastructure. Tensions remain high, with Lebanon's Prime Minister, Najib Mikati, urging restraint from all parties involved. The United States, under the previous administration of Donald Trump, had backed Israel's actions, but the current administration has been more critical. Tehran, Iran's capital, has issued a statement denying claims made by former U.S. President Donald Trump that the country was involved in the attacks. Iran's Foreign Minister, Hossein Amir-Abdollahian, has described Trump's claims as false and baseless. The Iranian government has also condemned the Israeli attacks, calling them barbaric and genocidal. The ceasefire is seen as a crucial opportunity for peace talks to resume, but many questions remain unanswered. The situation in Lebanon remains fluid, and we'll continue to bring you updates as more information becomes available. Following a significant development in the ongoing Middle East tensions, President Trump has made a surprise statement on the prospects of a potential Iran peace deal. Good evening. I'm your name. We're bringing you the latest on the Middle East crisis, where a potential breakthrough in tensions with Iran has sparked optimism. U.S. President Donald Trump has suggested that a peace deal could be reached soon, after Iranian officials announced the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz to commercial shipping. This critical waterway was closed to all vessels in June, amid heightened tensions between the U.S. and Iran. The closure of the Strait of Hormuz, which connects the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman, was seen as a significant escalation of the conflict, which began after the U.S. drone strike that killed top Iranian General Qasem Soleimani in January. Iran had threatened to retaliate for the killing, leading to a significant increase in tensions between the two nations. The announcement by Iranian officials on Friday that the strait was reopened to commercial shipping for the remainder of the Israel-Lebanon ceasefire was seen as a positive development. However, Iranian officials have made it clear that the two sides still need to overcome serious differences. The U.S. and Iran are still locked in a bitter dispute over the U.S.'s withdrawal from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, a landmark nuclear deal. The reopening of the Strait of Hormuz has the potential to ease tensions in the region, but it remains to be seen whether the two sides can reach a lasting peace agreement. We will continue to monitor the situation and provide updates as more information becomes available. As the mercury rises, concerns over Japan's energy security continue to simmer, with the government warning of an impending hellish summer ahead. Japan is bracing for a hellish summer as tensions in the Middle East and concerns over global energy supplies mount. The situation escalated after a ceasefire agreement was reached in Lebanon, allowing Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, a critical waterway for commercial shipping. However, U.S. President Donald Trump has stated that a U.S. naval blockade of Iran's ports will remain in place until a deal is struck. Analysts warn that this development could have far-reaching consequences for Japan, which relies heavily on energy imports to meet its electricity demands. The country's crude oil reserves are sufficient, but liquefied natural gas, LNG, is a different story. LNG is used to generate electricity in Japan's major cities and is harder to store in large volumes, making it more vulnerable to disruptions. As temperatures are expected to rise, demand for air conditioning is likely to climb, putting pressure on Japan's energy infrastructure. The country's government is now facing the prospect of power shortages, which could be mitigated by introducing planned power outages, shortening office hours, and cutting some train and flight services. The situation is also raising concerns about the impact on Japan's economy and daily life. The crisis is further complicated by the fact that Japan's energy supply chain is highly dependent on global events. The country's reliance on international energy sources has made it vulnerable to disruptions in the past. With the Strait of Hormuz set to reopen, Japan is now facing a very real risk of power shortages this summer, which could have significant consequences for the country's economy and citizens. A major maritime milestone has been reached as a commercial vessel successfully navigates one of the world's most critical waterways after months of heightened tensions. A U.S. Navy guided missile destroyer, the USS Cole, and a Saudi Arabian oil tanker, the MT Mercer ST, have passed through the Strait of Hormuz without incident, according to the U.S. military. This marks the first time a cruise ship has transited the strait since the Iran-U.S. conflict escalated in September 2022. The incident occurred on Friday, with the USS Cole's crew reportedly conducting a routine transit of the strait when they spotted the Saudi tanker. The U.S. Navy said the vessel escorted the tanker through the strait, ensuring its safe passage. The Strait of Hormuz is a critical waterway that connects the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman. It is a major route for oil shipments from the Middle East to global markets. The area has been the focus of heightened tensions between the U.S. and Iran since the U.S. drone strike that killed top Iranian military commander Qasem Soleimani in January 2020. The incident has raised concerns about the potential for further conflict in the region. The transit of the strait by the USS Cole and the Saudi tanker is seen as a significant development in the ongoing conflict. It suggests that the U.S. is committed to ensuring the safe passage of vessels through the strait, despite the heightened tensions. The incident also highlights the importance of the Strait of Hormuz in the global energy supply chain. In a surprise move, Iran has reopened the strategic Strait of Hormuz, sending shockwaves through the global energy market and stock markets worldwide. According to a report by the Associated Press, oil prices plummeted nearly 9% after Iran announced that the Strait of Hormuz is open again for commercial tankers carrying crude. This development has significant implications for the global energy market. The Strait of Hormuz, a narrow waterway connecting the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman, has been a critical shipping route for oil exports from the Middle East. In August, the United States had imposed sanctions on Iran's oil exports, citing concerns over the country's nuclear program. The sanctions led to a sharp increase in oil prices, which have been a major factor in rising gasoline prices and inflation in the United States. The lifting of sanctions means that oil tankers can once again transport crude through the Strait of Hormuz without restrictions. This could lead to a surge in oil supply, putting downward pressure on prices. As a result, gasoline prices and inflation are expected to ease, benefiting consumers. The improved oil supply also has the potential to ease costs tied to energy and transport, including grocery prices. The news has sent shockwaves through Wall Street, with the S&P 500 and Dow Jones Industrial Average surging to record highs. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose by as many as 1,100 points, its largest single-day gain since 2009. The rally in the stock market reflects investor optimism over the improved oil supply and its potential impact on the global economy. Thank you for joining us for this week's news recap. We'll be back with more updates soon. If you'd like to stay informed on the latest developments, be sure to subscribe to our channel. We'll keep you up to date on the stories that matter, from the Middle East to the global economy. Don't miss a beat. Subscribe now and join the conversation. We'll see you in the next video.